Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Gibbs. I am receiving my master's degree in um, early education, and I'm going to talk about my research paper that I did on the impact of attendance on academic behavior. All right, I'm going to start with my topic, and my topic was what impact does attendance have on that student achievement? Okay, what are we here to talk about? This study was based on a lot of information that researchers, policymakers, practitioners, and parents um, placed a positive assumption on the relationship between school attendance and the academic success. However, um, the research examined the factors that relate to the academic outcomes, and they didn't really go and focus on the relationship between individual attendance and the student achievement. And I use this from the National Center of Education Statistics. All right, for my sampling method, I based my study off of another study that was conducted by the Early Childhood Longitudinal Group. That was a kindergarten cohort. They mainly focused on the absenteeism in kindergarten, and my study was based more on the absenteeism in first grade. they what their findings were was that early absenteeism negatively impacted the academic achievement in reading, math, and general knowledge in the early school years. Their results showed that the children that were absent all the time in kindergarten, they had lower achievement in their reading, their math by the end of first grade. Children that missed 10% or more of the school year generally scored 5 points less than those who were absent up to 3% of the school year in kindergarten, which is a really big difference. Okay. All right. My data. Uh, it focused on the problem with attendance impacting student achievement. My proposal was that students who are chronically absent 3 or more consecutive days within a 3 to 4 week period would show that correlation between attendance and academic achievement. And I was focusing mainly on reading, working with small groups in reading. I believe that my data would show that um, students who had they lacked that proper nutrition, that weren't getting that morning breakfast, they didn't get adequate rest because their parents didn't have them on a set schedule, and they did not have that parental support where parents were constantly making sure that they were taken care of, would decrease their achievement in reading. And I used formative assessments and weekly reading fluency tests to prove that my research was accurate. Okay, for my procedures, I used a quantitative study to determine if the lack of rest, the proper nutrition, parents not being supportive would impact that student achievement. Okay, my populations, my group that I chose was first grade students that were impacted by these environmental factors. I assessed the class as a whole, and then I broke it into small groups based on students that were affected by environmental factors like they didn't get to school on time, they had lacked proper nutrition, they weren't sleeping good at night, and it was really hard to get in touch with their parents. I just feel like they did not, we did not see that parental support. So those were my groups that I chose for my research. Okay, for confidentiality, every child that was in the study, which was my entire class, had to take home a copy of this confidentiality agreement, and it was explaining what we were going to do and why. And I went through and showed them. The purpose was to research the impact of attendance on the student achievement. I gave them a timeline, which was October the 26th through November the 13th, and I wanted them to be assured that their child would be harmed in any way, that I was a certified teacher, and the study was going to be conducted in my class. Um, they had to sign the consent to participate. If they did not, then I did not allow them to be a part of the research study. Okay, my internal external validity. I provided interventional support for the students who showed the declines in academic performance based on these assessments. What I did for a period of 4 to 5 days during that timeline, I would take certain children that were excessively absent and I would test them at the beginning of the week using a formative assessment, and then I'd test them again at the end of the week using a formative assessment, and I would compare those two assessments to see if it affected their academic performance in any way, if they declined, if they increased, and if the study was consistent. Did this happen every week? Were they chronically absent? And then I put all of that data together um, to prove my research study was accurate. I wanted to see if the students would show improvement on their assessments if they received interventions, if I worked with the students more individually that were lacking in that support from home. The environmental factors were incorporated. Of course, most of them missed breakfast. Many of them were late to school. And I wanted to see if I could support them by doing the small group interventions. Would that lessen that negative impact on their academic performance? Okay. I have two graphs. The first is um, students who are chronically who were absent from October the 26th of 2020 to November the 13th of 2020. That's my study time. I did go and get this from my actual school administrator, so it is pretty accurate. These are chronically absent students from that period of time. And if you just kind of look at the graph, these are students that we picked precisely that we knew were quite often chronically absent. So we have student O, student A, student C, student H, and student M. These children showed at least 4 to 5 days of being absent all the time. And these are some of the students that I used in my research study and included in my small group intervention to try to see if I could boost that academic performance. All right, the next graph is a difference in comparison. I also went to the administrator and got the students that were present that very rarely missed to see, the difference that that being at school would impact their academic performance also. So I have student B, D, I, N, P, Q, S, T, and U. So these students were placed in small group interventions as well as the students who were chronically absent. All right, how to see academic growth based on my research. To talk about something that I would have changed, I would have changed the population to see a change in the academic growth of first graders with certain environmental factors that impact their learning. I feel like my research was limited to my school of employment, and I would like to have data from various schools to use as samples with various ethnic groups, with various environmental factors, to see if those results would be the same or if I would see either a decline or an increase in the academic performance. Okay. Changes that I would make in the original plan. After conducting the research study, I would change the period of time that I conducted my data collection. I would like to work with my sample population for a longer period of time to see if those absences continued or if they were present more, and if this would impact that student achievement more or less if I had a broader timeline to work with. All right, and that is all. Thank you so much for your time.